On today's video, we look at a range of iconic radios made very prominent in the 1980s by one movie in particular, and that was the movie Die Hard. The very first movie portrays a very young-looking Bruce Willis as a New York City policeman, John McClane, who decides to visit his estranged wife on Christmas Eve at the headquarters of her Japanese-owned company. However, their festive fun is interrupted by a group of terrorists armed with an assortment of weapons and, more importantly for us, a varied range of Kenwood walkie-talkies. In this movie, radios are featured heavily, and the Kenwood TH-21BT, a VHF radio carried by Willis throughout the entire movie, has now become very sought after for fans of the movie and cosplayers alike. Willis's character picks up one of the gang's walkie-talkies as the movie progresses, and he continues to use it to both antagonise and ensnare his assailants. He also at one point uses it to contact the local police as well, which was something that wasn't really possible then and isn't even possible now, using a VHF walkie-talkie fixed to this band. The gang were using both VHF and UHF variants of the radios at different times. Not only that, but the radio that Willis was using was a VHF radio fitted with an antenna from the UHF radios, so in reality it would have performed terribly. I can only think that this antenna was chosen because practically it was smaller. It was much smaller for him to carry around and for an action-driven character to move about with. So during the movie and in close framing, the antenna and the radio could be in shot as a whole. As you might have guessed, the RCA screw-on antennas for these radios nowadays are also very hard to find. They're distinctive green bands at the top being the giveaway as to this type of antenna that's fitted to the radio. As a radio, it's very basic and would be rather clumsy in operation with its thumb wheel frequency. However, it wouldn't get knocked off frequency, which is a distinct advantage. At the time, there were much more advanced radios with memory channels, backlights, etc., such as the FT23R, and others that would have been a better choice, but as we all know, that these radios were chosen because it was probably Kenwood that offered the most money at the time. The radio could also be seen with a white and red Kenwood sticker plastered over the rear of it, again not something that retail radios had on at the time. This product placement was rife in the mid to late 80s, in particular with phone handsets portrayed in many films. It was the perfect location on the lower of the mouthpiece of the phone to pop the brand name. This was taken, of course, to the next level by the successive series of 007 movies, which are just adverts. This is one of my favourite movies. I decided, in the absence of any radios showing on the online auction sites for years really, that I would make one in 3D. And if it looked good, maybe use it as an excuse to purchase a resin printer possibly and make some really nice smooth copies of the radio. So just before Christmas I set out from photos and a few snippets of dimensions online to make the radio in 3D. My intention was to get this project completed before Christmas because, as we all know, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Alas, the project went on the back burner whilst life got in the way, and then I picked up the ball again. So still after 6 months of searching, I couldn't find a TH21 anywhere. So I went to the rpf.com, which is a costume maker and prop forum site, and there I spotted a few people in the UK that not only had the right gun, a Beretta M92, but they also had the right radio, the Kenwood TH21BT. I got speaking to a really nice guy on there called Paul, who gave me some advice on how to get hold of a legal replica gun and also offered me a radio. I have seen these on eBay in rather poor condition and mostly in America, which would for me incur significant import and delivery charges. This is the TH2180 of course, so not the exact radio but still very close and certainly a big help. The radio arrived from Paul and I was pleasantly surprised at just how close I had got with my 3D version, based as I just did that off of photographs and some information on the radio. There was a few little things I had missed, but it was totally a match for the main radio. Having this radio in hand will make sure the next few days that I get on top of the fine details and the radio will be perfect, as we'll see in another episode. The radio came with no antenna or cells inside the battery box now. More observant of you will notice that this radio is actually the TH2180, as I've said. It's the same frame as the TH21BT, more or less, albeit slightly longer. However, it doesn't have the CTCSS tones, which are visible on the 21 by the dip switches on the front, although it's capable of tone use by an optional plug-in TU6 board denoted by the dip switches in the bottom right on the TH21BT. Otherwise, it's as near as makes not much difference, the same radio. That being said, I am still on the lookout for a TH21BT, but this will more than do for now. So let's get this radio on the bench and see if it works. I would like to get this working and to do a test alongside the FT23R and the FT70D, old versus new if you like. We will get all radios set up and go out to our usual places and try them out. The TH21 VHF radio only produced 1 watt operating in the high power setting and 150 milliwatts on the low power settings according to the manual. Comparing this to 2.5 to 3 watts for the FT23R and 5 watts for the newest radio, the FT70D. However, I am sure that the TH will still cut through. We will use the same antenna and swap antennas around on the TH and the FT to make things a fair test, and also because I only have the one antenna anyway. Anyway, let's have a look at it and see what this thing has left. Will it still work? Paul from the RPF forum had said that there were no cells inside this box. As they did back in the day, very often radios would accept just standard cells here, and this radio would accept AAA batteries. I'm sure most people that use them use rechargeables. Now this one didn't have any clips in, as you can see here in the service manual. The case is supposed to have clips so you can get your full series of battery cells in line there, and this one didn't have them. You see the capacity there, 180 milliamp hours compared to the 1.8 amp hours of the Baofeng. So anyway, you'll see the 7.2 volt stated on the terminals. However, if we check the manual, the operating voltage will operate between 5.8 and 10 volts, which leaves us open to being able to run LiPo batteries, which is useful. So we do want to up the capacity in this. So I found some brand new little cells. Before I made them off, I thought I would just test. So I got a DC to DC converter. My bench power supply is out of action at the minute, and just tweak this down to 7.2 volts so we can conduct all the tests at the voltage that is recommended in the service manual, just to make sure all the power readings tie up with what they're supposed to tie up with. So I removed the battery clip just to make it a little bit easier to get into these terminals with some fiddly crocodile clips. Don't ever buy cheap crocodile clips, these are a nightmare. Anyway, let's have a listen to see what it sounds like. Okay, crackly. But the squelch does appear to work, but it's got the usual problems. So we'll swill some switch clean around in the pots without taking it apart, which should help improve things somewhat. So I'm just using the Quansheng. I set up 145 as a test frequency, and we stuck the radio right next to it and just did a little transmit test. Now, like I say, the thumb wheel here is the first digit is your 144, 145 for your megahertz, and then you've got your kilohertz after that. So it's quite easy actually, and you've also got your +5 for your split. So let's have a listen to it and see what it sounds like. One, two. Okay, it's never ideal testing like this, of course, so we will do some tests in the next video if you carry on watching this for now. Now I was let down. I did have an adapter on order, but it didn't come in time, so I had to use this lead to do this test, which worked anyway. And I was pleased to see that the transmit light worked there. There's no receive light on this radio, only just a red transmit light. I just had to make sure the radio was in high power, which it wasn't. I can switch that over on the back and pop the radio into high power. Now on the power meter we're looking at the lower scale as we transmit. So on the lower scale we're up to just under a watt there. As you can see, it goes up to 2.5 watts, so about roughly about 750 milliwatts. And as you can see on here, it's supposed to be 145 300. It's absolutely spot on, give or take a hertz or so. So with that in mind, I populated the battery pack, got them fully charged, and got ready to pop out. So you can see that on the next video. If you please like and subscribe, that'd be great, and that way you'll know when the next video is going to be on. We'll look at the 3D design side of the dummy radio, which is coming on really well, and we'll take the radios out to site and we'll test them old versus new. Catch you on the next one. Thanks again for watching.